Hi everybody, Stone here with Wood and Stone. Today I'm going to be talking about a speed square. First thing you'll notice is it's shaped like a triangle, not a square. What square is referring to is the right angle, so it helps you draw square lines and square angles. It also helps you do a bunch of other things, and a lot of people don't realize how versatile this tool is. So I'm going to do a bunch of top-down shots and show you 9 different tricks that I use this tool for on a consistent basis. As a woodworker, not as consistent as like a framer, but we still use these a lot. So I'll cut to those shots now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check the end for square. If you take your speed square and tilt it up on edge, you'll see the edge of your square, and then you'll see that it tees right here. That is made to catch on your board. So now I have it firmly along the bottom edge. I can bring it out here, and I can see that, just like per usual, kind of normal, the factory edge is slightly out of square. So that's trick number 1. Trick number 2 is marking for a square and 45s. This is one that most people know a speed square for. So there's our square line, and I'm holding it firm to this edge, and then here's our 45. So we have a square line and a 45 to this edge. Trick number 3 is finding the center of a board. So the last one I marked a square and then a 45 off of this edge. If you take your speed square, flip it over onto the other side, bring it up to your 90-degree edge, and then mark 45 the other direction. This right here is the center of your board. So if I take this, we're just like 5 7/16. I am at 2 11/16 that way, and 2 11/16 that way. All right, trick number 4 is marking angles. So on your speed square, down in this corner, it says pivot. So that is the corner that's going to stay tight. I'll just put a 90-degree angle here just so you can see the difference. These lines over here are angles in degrees. So now I can keep this point tight to my board, and I can tilt this out like that, and there is a 15-degree angle. And it works on all these angles. That's 35, 45. This is where you can see a bigger square would be helpful, but you can keep on going as much as you want. This is how it makes it easy to cut a lot of boards, or a lot of different things, but this is often how they're cutting rafters for framing and whatnot, is they're marking it out. And the next trick, I will show you how to use this as a straight edge to cut things. Our next trick is making lines parallel to the edge. So these little notches here, first of all, what you can do is you can do this on any square, but you can hold the pencil there and move. Now I'm holding it firm to the board to create that. The other way that you can do it is these little notches here, and I'm sure other speed squares might be a little bit different, but the top ones are on the quarters and the bottom notches are on the 8ths, right? So if I wanted to do 1 7/8, okay, and then if I wanted to do 2 1/4, that's how you make lines parallel to the edge. Our next trick is making consecutive lines. So the way that I do this is I will make a little mark here, and then I use this gauge to do it. So let's mark this line here. I marked the 2-inch. I'm going to move this over to 3 for 1 inch, and then I'll move it over to 4. And then you see my first line here is on the 2 again, so I can move that over to 3. Now we have consecutive lines that are 1 inch apart. And you can do the math to do whatever you want to do there as far as distance, but that's how you do that trick. The next trick is to use this as a straight edge for a circular saw. So I'm going to mark this. It's not a particular measurement because I'm just showing you a trick. But then I take my circular saw, and I'm looking right here to make sure that my blade is on the scrap side of my cut, so that remember, your blade cuts an 1/8 of an inch, turns an 1/8 of an inch into sawdust, and we want that 1/8 of an inch on the scrap side, so you end up with an accurate cut. And then I'm holding this firm, holding my saw blade here. And I purposely left that line just a little bit so you guys can see, but you see how straight that is along that line? That's the trick for that one. Next, I'll show you angles. Next, I'm going to show you how to cut at an angle that's not 90 degrees. For that, we need this little tool, which is called a stair gauge. These are meant to attach to your square for laying out, a framing square for laying out stairs, but it can also attach to a speed square. And we'll just set this up to do a 45 degree. All this is a little set screw. So that grabs, and we'll push that in, tighten this down really tight, and then marked out at 15, that little point. Now I can hold all this firm. Here's our pivot point, here's this. I can hold this whole thing firm and it's not gonna move on me. If you don't have that, the likelihood of this being accurate is slim to none. So we'll set this up right here on the edge. Bring that over. Bring our circular saw over. There we go. And there's our 15-degree angle. The last trick is tool blade alignment. I'm doing this on a table saw. You can do this with router tables, drill presses to make sure the head is square, bandsaw tables to make sure they're square to the blade, fences, all that stuff. It's the same thing. First of all, unplug the tool before you put anything next to the saw blade, and then you bring it in. What you don't want to do is put it on the carbide because that won't give you an accurate measurement. So I got my blade as far up as it'll go. And then I wanted to touch the saw blade. You see how there's no daylight right here? There's no daylight between the square and the saw blade. That's a square saw blade. Now I'm gonna take this out of alignment. We'll put this at like 5 degrees so you guys can see what it looks like when it's not square. Well, that's obvious. So we'll go a little bit less obvious so you can see. Now you see at the bottom where there's daylight? I'll bring it back even more. At the bottom where there's a little daylight, that is not square. So, sometimes that's intentional, but a lot of times at under 5 degrees out of alignment is you have to do that on some cuts, especially when you're working with like trim and old houses that aren't perfectly square, and having things that are just slightly under that 5 degree mark. You usually can't see it unless you're looking at it all the time on a consistent basis. You'll notice it. So double checking these with your squares, really important, especially if the cut matters. Always check everything before you make the cut. Okay, so there's a bunch of really useful tips and tricks that will definitely be helpful and probably impress. A lot of people just use this to draw a 90-degree angle or a 45-degree angle. Now you know a whole bunch of other things to do with it. And for all of those tricks, this one I think was like upper teens for cost. You can get them a little bit cheaper. You can definitely get them a little bit more expensive. This one's a Milwaukee brand, but they're all pretty much function the same. You can get these, I've seen them as small as 2-inch and as big as 24 inches. Same concepts apply to all of them though. It just allows you to do different things. Obviously smaller ones are great for fitting into cabinets and drawer boxes. Bigger ones are great for doing things like timber framing. So it just depends on what you're doing. These are easier to carry around, bigger ones are heavier, etc. But I hope this gets you going. This is a necessity in most tool bags, tool pouches, super handy tool, and for all the value that you get out of it, it's really cheap for all the uses that you're going to get out of it. So if you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next one. Have a good day.